Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying every text, every word, every pause, wondering if they really like you, or if it's all slipping away, you're not imagining it? Overthinking your relationship is quietly stealing your peace, your confidence, and your happiness. But what if I told you that everything your mind has been telling you, the worst-case scenarios, the doubts, the constant what-ifs, is not reality? Tonight, you're going to discover exactly how to stop the spiral, reclaim control over your mind, and finally experience love without the anxiety, the second-guessing, or the sleepless nights. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by asking you this. How many nights have you found yourself lying awake, replaying a conversation in your head, analyzing every word, every pause, every emoji, wondering if you said the wrong thing, wondering if they feel the same way you do, wondering if it's all going to fall apart? If you're honest, probably more than you'd like to admit. And yet, despite all this mental gymnastics, despite all the what-ifs and maybes and what could go wrongs, you are still in the same position. Stuck, anxious, and overthinking. And here's the truth. Overthinking your relationship is not a sign that you care more. It's a sign that you're giving your mind too much power over your heart. And it's robbing you of the joy and clarity that you deserve. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. Your thoughts are not always reality. Just because your brain can imagine the worst-case scenario doesn't mean it's true. You can craft entire worlds in your mind where they are secretly unhappy, bored, or planning to leave, but these are just stories your mind is telling you. And stories, no matter how convincing, are not facts. The second you start to separate what's real from what your mind is fabricating, you take a massive step toward freedom. You stop letting imagined disasters control your present moments. Now, I know what you're thinking, easier said than done, and I agree. Because overthinking isn't just a habit, it's a pattern your brain has learned over time. It's a loop that feels safe because it gives the illusion of control. If you can predict every possible outcome, then maybe, just maybe, you won't be hurt. But here's the catch. Overthinking doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. It keeps you trapped in a cycle where you can't truly connect, can't truly trust, and can't truly enjoy what you have. The solution isn't to stop caring, it's to care differently, to care without spiraling, to observe without obsessing, to feel without fearing. One of the most powerful tools you can start using today is the practice of presence. Presence is the ability to be fully in the moment without dragging your past insecurities or future anxieties into it. Ask yourself, am I reacting to what is, or am I reacting to a story I'm telling myself? This is where most of the overthinking happens, inside the story, not in reality. Another thing you must realize is that uncertainty is not your enemy. In fact, it's unavoidable in any relationship. You cannot control what the other person thinks, feels, or does. Trying to control it through over-analysis is like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips away no matter how tightly you grasp it. The key is to embrace the uncertainty and let it coexist with your confidence. Trust is built not on certainty, but on your willingness to be vulnerable in spite of it. And here's the subtle but essential shift. Stop asking the questions that keep you stuck. Questions like, do they really like me? Or are they going to leave? Or what did they mean by that text? These questions are traps. They keep your mind spinning in circles. Instead, start asking questions that empower you, that bring clarity and action, that give you agency. Ask, what do I need to feel secure? Am I communicating my needs clearly? How can I show love without losing myself? These are questions that lead to growth, not anxiety. Communication is another area where overthinkers often sabotage themselves. You think that saying the wrong thing will ruin everything, so you say nothing or you say too much. But relationships thrive on clarity, honesty, and timing. The right words at the wrong time are still wrong. But the wrong words spoken with courage, authenticity, and respect can still build connection. When you overthink, you are trading authenticity for perfection, and no human connection is built on perfection. Now, let's talk about self-worth. So much of overthinking comes from fear that you're not enough, fear that they'll leave, fear that you'll be rejected. And here's the truth, Your value does not depend on their attention, their affection, or their choices. The moment you start defining yourself by someone else's reactions, you give away your power. Overthinking often masquerades as love, but it's really insecurity. Real love feels secure. Real love doesn't live in the what-ifs. Here's a practical mindset shift that changes everything. When you catch yourself overthinking, label it. Say to yourself, there it is, my brain's spinning a story. Just acknowledging it gives you space. Then, redirect your energy to observation. What do you actually know for certain? And when you can't know for certain, can you choose to trust the flow instead of forcing an answer? This is not denial, it's conscious presence. It's choosing calm over chaos. Boundaries are another crucial piece. Overthinkers often blur the lines between their emotions and the other person's. You feel anxious because you're absorbing their mood, reading into their texts, decoding their every move. Setting clear boundaries, emotional, mental, and even digital, gives your mind the structure it craves. You can love fully without losing yourself. You can care without collapsing into fear. You can invest without being consumed. And here's something that most people don't realize. Overthinking is often fueled by isolation. When you're alone with your thoughts, they grow louder, bigger, and scarier. Engaging in life, pursuing passions, nurturing friendships, building a sense of self outside the relationship, dilutes the intensity of overthinking. Your happiness should not be dependent on a single person, single text, or single conversation. The more you cultivate a rich, fulfilling life, the less room there is for fear to take root. Mindfulness and self-reflection are also powerful tools. Journaling, meditation, even taking a walk and asking yourself simple questions like, what am I feeling right now? Or is this thought helpful? These practices train your mind to pause instead of react. Overthinking is compulsive. Mindfulness teaches you to choose, to respond instead of spinning, to act from clarity instead of fear. And finally, remember that love is not a problem to solve. It's a dynamic, evolving experience to be lived. You cannot calculate your way to security or happiness. You cannot think your way into intimacy. You can, however, practice presence, authenticity, and courage. And when you do, the mind gradually stops its frantic need to control, and the heart gets to do what it was designed for: feel, connect, and grow. When you start implementing these shifts, overthinking loses its grip. You stop asking questions that paralyze you. You embrace uncertainty with confidence. You communicate with authenticity. You honor your worth. You set boundaries, and you immerse yourself in a life that is bigger than your fears. Your relationship stops being a source of anxiety and starts becoming a source of joy, curiosity, and mutual growth. And as paradoxical as it sounds, letting go of overthinking is not about caring less. It's about caring smarter, more powerfully, and more fully than ever before. Every time you catch yourself spiraling, every time your mind whispers worst-case scenarios, pause, breathe, and remind yourself, I am present. I am enough. I can trust what is unfolding. I can love without fear. Overthinking is not weakness. It's a signal. It's a sign that you are ready to step into a more conscious, empowered way of loving. The moment you respond to it with awareness instead of panic, you take back control, you reclaim your peace, and you allow your relationship to flourish in ways that fear never could. You have the power to stop overthinking. You have the power to stop letting imagined stories run your life. You have the power to embrace uncertainty, communicate with clarity, and love without losing yourself. And when you do, you will discover something extraordinary. Relationships stop being a source of stress and start being a source of profound connection, joy, and freedom. Would you like me to continue and expand this speech to each exactly 1,000 words? It's currently around 950, so a little more fine-tuning can make it perfect. Now, let's go even deeper, because understanding that you can stop overthinking is only the beginning. The next step is learning how to actively shift your mindset so that your thoughts serve you instead of sabotage you. Every time you feel yourself spiraling into doubt, ask yourself, what am I trying to avoid by overthinking? Often beneath all the loops of what if they don't text back or what if they're losing interest is a fear of rejection, a fear of loss, or a fear that you aren't enough. And here's the liberating truth. Acknowledging your fears doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware. It makes you powerful. Because the moment you face the fear instead of running from it in mental loops, you reclaim your energy and your choice. One practical way to do this is to create what I call a thought filter. Imagine each thought as a message arriving in your inbox. Not every message deserves your immediate response. Some messages are spam, they are exaggerated, irrational, or unhelpful. Some messages require reflection. They might contain useful insights about your feelings, your needs, or your patterns. And some messages are urgent. They indicate something that genuinely requires your attention. Overthinking happens when every thought is treated as urgent. So, learn to filter. Ask yourself, does this thought require action, or is it just noise? This distinction alone can prevent hours of mental spinning. Another cornerstone in stopping overthinking is developing trust. Not just in your partner, but in yourself. When you trust yourself, you know that you can handle whatever happens. That confidence allows you to respond instead of react. Overthinkers often act from a place of scarcity. If I don't anticipate every possible problem, I might fail, I might lose them. But when you operate from abundance, trusting that you have value, that you have resilience, that you can navigate life, you stop giving power to imagined scenarios. Your mind stops being a prison and it becomes a tool. It's also essential to recognize the difference between observation and assumption. Observation is seeing what is actually happening. Texts sent, words spoken, actions taken. Assumption is filling in the gaps with your mind's worst-case scenarios. A huge part of overthinking is living in the realm of assumption. You assume their tone means disinterest. You assume that one delay in communication signals rejection. You assume things that your partner has never actually said or done. Reality is far more neutral, far less dramatic, and far more manageable than the stories your mind creates. Learning to separate fact from fiction is a skill that will transform every area of your life, not just your relationship. And let's address one of the most subtle traps, seeking constant reassurance. Many overthinkers repeatedly ask, either verbally or mentally, do they like me? Are we okay? Am I enough? This constant seeking of reassurance gives temporary relief, but it strengthens the cycle of anxiety. True security doesn't come from external validation, it comes from internal certainty. You need to cultivate a sense of, I am enough and I can navigate whatever unfolds. That internal grounding will not only calm your mind, but it will also make you more magnetic, more attractive, and more confident in your relationship. Let's talk about the danger of comparison. Overthinking often sneaks in when you measure your relationship against someone else's, or against some imagined ideal. You think, why didn't they do what she did? Or why aren't we like that couple? But every relationship has its own rhythm, its own pace, and its own unique beauty. Comparing your reality to someone else's fantasy is a recipe for anxiety. The more you focus on your relationship as it actually is instead of how it should be, the less power overthinking has. When you embrace the uniqueness of your connection, you stop obsessing over every minor detail, and you start appreciating the real magic that exists right now. Another transformative practice is choosing action over rumination. Overthinking keeps you passive, it keeps you stuck in analysis paralysis. Action, no matter how small, breaks the cycle. It might be sending a clear message, initiating a meaningful conversation, or even deciding to step back and focus on your own life for a while. Action signals to your mind and your heart that you are the one in charge, that you have agency, that you are not a victim of your thoughts. Even tiny steps forward generate momentum, and momentum is the antidote to mental loops. Self-compassion is also a critical ingredient. Overthinkers are often their own harshest critics. I shouldn't feel this way. I must be overreacting. I'm too sensitive. These judgments fuel the cycle of overthinking. Instead, cultivate curiosity and kindness toward yourself. Ask, why am I feeling this? What is this fear trying to tell me? Approach your thoughts as you would a close friend. with patience, understanding, and care. This shift alone can diffuse the intensity of your mental spirals. It's also worth highlighting that overthinking often comes from a place of disconnection from your body, from your emotions, from the present. When you feel anxious, it is rarely just a mental problem. It is stored in your body, tension in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a tight jaw. By practicing mindfulness, deep breathing, or even gentle movement like walking or yoga, you release the physical tension that fuels overthinking. The more connected you are to your body, the less your mind can run wild with what-ifs and scenarios. Let's explore a more subtle but powerful principle. Curiosity replaces fear. Overthinking is born from a fear-based mindset. What if they leave? What if I fail? What if I misinterpret? But what if you approached your relationship with curiosity instead? Ask yourself, what is actually happening? What can I learn about myself? How can I deepen connection? Curiosity shifts your energy from worry to exploration. It turns anxiety into engagement, and it transforms a relationship from a source of stress into a source of growth and discovery. Another critical factor is pacing yourself emotionally. Overthinkers tend to rush their emotions as if they must predict and control everything in advance, but relationships naturally unfold over time. Trust, intimacy, and understanding develop gradually. By giving yourself permission to experience your feelings without forcing conclusions, you free your mind from the trap of, I must know everything now. Patience is not passive, it is powerful. It allows life to reveal itself in its own timing, and your relationship to evolve organically. It's also essential to notice the language you use, both internally and externally. Words like always, never, should, and must create pressure and exaggerate problems. Instead, use language that reflects reality, flexibility, and openness. Replace they never appreciate me with sometimes they show appreciation in ways I don't notice or I am open to understanding them better. Subtle changes in wording rewire your thinking patterns and reduce the intensity of overthinking. Now, let's address the mind-body connection in a slightly deeper way. Overthinking is often a signal that your nervous system is in overdrive. Chronic stress and anxiety create a loop where your mind interprets every action as a potential threat. To calm thigh system, you must engage in practices that downregulate your nervous system, deep diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, grounding exercises, or even spending time in nature. The calmer your body, the quieter your mind. Overthinking thrives on tension, relaxation starves it. One more profound shift is to redefine what control means. Overthinkers believe that if they can predict and analyze everything, they will be safe. But real control isn't about predicting the future, it's about mastering how you respond to it. You cannot control another person's choices, but you can control your attention, your energy, your actions, and your mindset. Shifting from trying to control them to controlling yourself is liberating, empowering, and ultimately more attractive. Finally, you must recognize that your relationship is not a test, it is a journey. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, every episode of overthinking is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become more conscious. Relationships are mirrors. They reflect your fears, your insecurities, and your strengths. Overthinking is simply a signal pointing to areas where you need growth. Treat it as feedback, not failure. Treat it as a guide, not a curse. When you combine all of these strategies, filtering your thoughts, embracing uncertainty, trusting yourself, separating observation from assumption, taking action, practicing self-compassion, connecting to your body, cultivating curiosity, pacing your emotions, choosing your language, calming your nervous system, and redefining control, you create a new relationship with your own mind. Overthinking no longer dominates you. Your thoughts become allies, not enemies. You engage with your partner from a place of clarity, confidence, and presence. This shift transforms not only your relationship, but your entire experience of love. You stop analyzing every move and start enjoying every moment. You stop fearing rejection and start embracing connection. You stop trying to predict outcomes and start creating possibilities. And the beauty of this is that it's cumulative. Every time you catch yourself spiraling and redirect with awareness, every time you pause before reacting, every time you replace fear with curiosity, you strengthen your mental resilience. You are literally rewiring your brain to handle relationships with grace, power, and authenticity. Imagine waking up and feeling calm in your relationship. Imagine reading a text and smiling instead of panicking. Imagine listening to them speak and truly enjoying the words instead of dissecting every syllable. Imagine choosing presence, curiosity, and love over fear, doubt, and mental loops. This is not fantasy. It is achievable, and it starts with small, conscious choices, each one a step away from overthinking and a step toward freedom, connection, and joy. Your mind does not have to run the show. Your thoughts do not have to dictate your happiness. You have the power to step off the treadmill of overthinking, to reclaim your peace, and to experience your relationship in a way that is empowering, exhilarating, and profoundly fulfilling. The tools are in your hands, the awareness is within you, and the choice is yours to make in every single moment. Now, let's go even deeper, because understanding the principles of stopping overthinking is one thing, but fully integrating them into your daily life requires consistent practice and a shift in your relationship with yourself. Overthinking thrives in the absence of boundaries, clarity, and self-trust. And if you want to truly break free, you need to address all three simultaneously. The first step is learning to separate your identity from your relationship. Many people believe that the quality of their relationship eats their value as a person. When overthinking arises, it's often because you are measuring your worth through their eyes, through their responses, or through imagined scenarios of their behavior. This is a trap. You are already complete. Your value is inherent. Your peace does not depend on their attention, approval, or affection. The moment you internalize this truth, overthinking loses its power because it no longer serves as a false attempt to protect you from losing yourself. Next, you must embrace the art of emotional responsibility. Overthinking often comes from outsourcing your emotional control to someone else. You feel anxious because you interpret their words or actions as reflections of your security. Here's the crucial shift. Your emotions are yours to manage. You can notice what they are saying or doing without letting it destabilize your inner world. Emotional responsibility doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means feeling them consciously and responding with awareness instead of reacting automatically. A powerful practice to implement is daily reflection, not for the purpose of spiraling, but for the purpose of gaining clarity. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to journal. Ask yourself, what did I experience today? What thoughts arose? Which ones were helpful and which ones were just noise? This simple act trains your mind to distinguish between productive reflection and destructive overthinking. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, triggers, and habitual loops. And once you see them clearly, you gain the power to interrupt them. Let's also address the role of expectations. Overthinking often stems from unrealistic expectations, not of your partner, but of life itself. You want certainty, clarity, and control in a world that is inherently unpredictable. You want reassurance, predictability, and proof in a dynamic system that evolves moment to moment. The more you cling to rigid expectations, the more anxiety you create for yourself. The solution is flexibility, understanding that life and love are living, breathing experiences that cannot be fully predicted, and that joy exists not despite uncertainty, but because of it. Another critical area is curiosity-driven inquiry. When a thought arises, instead of judging it or spiraling, ask, what is this trying to teach me? What is the message beneath my fear? Overthinking is often a signal, not a sentence. It tells you that there is something unresolved inside you, an unmet need, an insecurity, or a story you are still believing. By approaching it with curiosity rather than panic, you transform it into a tool for growth rather than a weapon of anxiety. Now, let's examine the role of self-discipline in overcoming overthinking. This doesn't mean rigid control or suppression of your mind. It means consciously choosing where to invest your energy. Overthinking is a form of mental spending without return. Every hour spent spinning in what-ifs is an hour you could spend connecting, creating, relaxing, or growing. Set clear intentions for your mind each day. Remind yourself, I will not give my energy to imagined disasters. I will focus on what I can influence, observe what is real, and cultivate calm. Disc. Pipeline of attention is one of the most underutilized tools in mastering your thoughts. Connection with your body cannot be underestimated. Overthinking often amplifies when your body is tense, fatigued, or understimulated. Simple practices, like walking, stretching, mindful breathing, or even shaking out your hands, can reset your nervous system and calm the mind. Your thoughts are not separate from your physiology, they are deeply connected. The calmer and more grounded your body, the less room there is for mental spirals. Consider this a daily maintenance practice, just as essential as eating or sleeping. Another pivotal strategy is redefining attachment to outcomes. So much overthinking happens because you are emotionally dependent on a particular result. You want them to text back, you want them to feel a certain way, you want reassurance at exactly the right time. Here's the liberating truth. You can invest, care, and love fully without attaching your happiness to a specific outcome. When your joy is independent, your mind stops obsessing over predictions. You become present instead of reactive, empowered instead of anxious, free instead of trapped. It's also crucial to build a rich internal life. Overthinkers often invest disproportionate energy in their partner or relationship because their own inner world feels empty or unfulfilling. Cultivate hobbies, passions, and friendships that feed your soul. When your life is full, your mind no longer clings to imagined problems or spirals in uncertainty. A rich internal world creates resilience, confidence, and a sense of abundance. 3 things that drastically reduce overthinking. Let's discuss the subtle power of mindful communication. Overthinkers often second-guess every word they send, every message they write, every tone they perceive. Instead, approach communication with simplicity and clarity. If something matters, express it. If it doesn't, let it go. Avoid the temptation to craft perfect words. Authenticity always outweighs precision. When you communicate with presence and honesty, you reduce ambiguity, and ambiguity is a primary trigger for overthinking. Accountability is another key. Share your intention to stop overthinking with a trusted friend or mentor. Articulating your goals externally creates a subtle psychological anchor. It reminds you of your commitment and gives you someone to check in with when you feel your thoughts spiraling. Overthinking thrives in isolation. Accountability creates connection, perspective, and a built-in reality check. Another layer of freedom comes from embracing the impermanence of life. Overthinkers often treat every decision, action, or word as permanent. But life is fluid. People grow, change, and evolve. Situations shift and relationships transform. Understanding that nothing is set in stone removes the crushing weight of needing to get everything right. You can make choices, learn, adjust, and continue forward without fear of irreparable damage. This mindset cultivates resilience and dramatically reduces anxiety. Let's also explore the importance of acceptance. Overthinking often stems from resisting reality. You want things to happen differently, your partner to act differently, or circumstances to align perfectly. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or giving up. It means acknowledging reality without unnecessary mental resistance. When you accept what is, you free your mind to act with clarity, wisdom, and presence instead of spinning in futile loops. Visualization can also be a powerful tool. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, deliberately visualize positive, realistic outcomes. Picture yourself responding with calm, handling challenges with clarity, and enjoying connection without fear. Visualization trains our mind to shift focus from imagined problems to actionable possibilities. Over time, your mental loops lose intensity because you are replacing fear-driven patterns with empowered, solution-oriented imagery. Another essential skill is learning to pause. Overthinkers react immediately to stimuli, texts, actions, words, before fully assessing reality. Pausing gives your mind the space to choose a response instead of defaulting to worry. Even a simple "I will pause and breathe before responding" can interrupt hours of mental spinning. Pausing is the bridge between reactive fear and conscious choice. Self-compassion deserves deeper attention. Overthinking often comes with self-criticism. "I shouldn't feel this way. I'm too sensitive. Why can't I control my mind?" This only fuels anxiety. Treat yourself with patience and understanding. Recognize that overthinking is a pattern you develop for a reason, often as a form of self-protection. Instead of judgment, approach yourself as a guide. I notice my mind spinning. I choose awareness. I choose calm. This gentle approach reduces intensity and builds resilience. Let's discuss the power of perspective. Overthinking amplifies minor issues into crises. Step back and ask, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Often the answer is no. This simple shift helps your mind contextualize problems, separating genuine concerns from exaggerated fears. Perspective transforms mental chaos into manageable, actionable insights. Finally, cultivate a relationship with trust, not blind trust, but conscious trust. Trust that your partner is capable, trust that you are capable, and trust that the relationship has room to grow and evolve. Overthinking thrives in doubt. Trust is the antidote. The more you cultivate trust in yourself, in your partner, and in the process of life, the less energy you waste on imagined catastrophes. All these practices combined create a radical transformation. Thought filtering, emotional responsibility, journaling, embracing uncertainty, curiosity-driven inquiry, self-discipline, body connection, outcome detachment, building internal richness, mindful communication, accountability, acceptance, visualization, pausing, self-compassion, perspective, and conscious trust. They form a complete system, a system that turns your mind from a prison of imagined fears into a playground of clarity, presence, and empowered love. Imagine walking through life and your relationship without the weight of constant mental analysis. Imagine noticing a text and responding with calm, clarity, and confidence. Imagine enjoying moments without translating every glance, word, or action into a potential problem. Imagine loving fully, connecting deeply, and thriving personally, all while being in a relationship that grows naturally, unburdened by fear. This is not fantasy. This is the reality available to you when you commit to the practices that stop overthinking. And here's the final transformative truth. Overthinking is not your enemy. It is a messenger. It signals areas where you need awareness, growth, and conscious choice. When you respond with understanding, presence, and action, you transform overthinking from a source of anxiety into a tool for empowerment. You gain mastery over your mind, you reclaim your peace, and you unlock the ability to engage in love from a place of clarity, confidence, and joy.